It started with one terrified girl stumbling from the shadows, tapping 5 times against her chest, begging for someone, anyone, to notice. Everyone else saw rain and confusion. But the K9 beside Rowan Maddox froze, ears sharp, eyes locked on the silent signal no human could hear. Moments later, the dog dragged Rowan toward 2 more children hiding behind a flooded crate, shaking uncontrollably as thunder swallowed their cries. Then came the chase. The woman in the blue coat sprinting through the storm, dragging a child as Ridge leapt over debris to cut her off. What happened next unraveled an entire trafficking network hidden in the dark corners of the city. And in the end, it wasn't an officer who saved the children. It was a dog who listened to the cries no one else could hear. Before we begin, like, share, and subscribe. And tell us, where are you watching from tonight? The morning rush at Oak Ridge Central Station unfolded like a rehearsed ritual of chaos. Voices overlapping, heels striking marble, suitcases rattling, kids whining, coffee machines hissing steam into air, thick with impatience and routine. Rowan Maddox moved through it all with the strange, quiet stillness of a man who had lived too many mornings like this, in places far more dangerous. At 38, tall and broad-shouldered, Rowan carried himself with the deliberate calmness of a retired USMC infantry marine. His charcoal gray security jacket draped neatly over his frame, blending with his coyote brown cargo pants and black tactical boots. His dark brown high and tight haircut, with a thin streak of silver at the temples, gleamed under the station lights, and his storm gray blue eyes tracked the hall with instinctive vigilance. The old scratched military watch with a cracked face clung to his wrist like a memory that refused to fade. Beside him walked Ridge, his German shepherd partner. 4 years old, sable black and gray fur rippling with every stride, and the unique broken arrow bright patch on his chest standing out beneath the harness labeled Ridge K9 Unit. The dog moved with a quiet assurance, ears flicking, nostrils sampling every shift in the air. His body alert in a way most people would never notice. Rowan muttered softly, "Let's make this a peaceful shift, partner." Ridge did not respond. Instead, he stopped. Completely. Frozen mid-stride in the middle of the flowing crowd, Ridge planted himself like a living barricade. His tail stiffened. His ears snapped forward. His amber eyes locked onto a point ahead. Sharp, intense, unblinking. Rowan tightened the leash. "What is it?" Ridge didn't move. His body went tense, breath held in a rigid pattern. Rowan followed Ridge's gaze. A woman in a navy blue coat hurried toward the ticket gates. Early 40s, pale face, dark brown hair curling slightly from humidity, her posture stiff and too carefully composed. 3 children trailed her, 2 boys and a younger girl. The boys walked with heads down. But the girl, she had bright chestnut hair and a messy ponytail, green eyes wide and glassy, scanning the crowd with the frantic desperation of someone drowning quietly in a sea of strangers. Her fingers clutched the woman's hand, shaking. Then Rowan saw it. 5 taps, 5 rapid, deliberate taps against the woman's back. A pause. Another 5 taps. Ridge reacted instantly. The dog lowered his shoulders, muscles coiling under sable fur, a low vibration beginning in his chest. Rowan felt it through the leash. "That's not nothing." "What do you see?" The girl looked back, just for a heartbeat. But fear bloomed across her face like a bruise on porcelain. Rowan stepped aside, adjusting his vantage point, the old instinct from war zones tightening in his chest. The girl tapped again. 5. 5. Ridge growled, quiet, sharp, enough to make nearby people turn. Rowan's breath stillened. Ridge only ever reacted like this on missions involving children, missions Rowan still carried like invisible scars. "Ridge, heel." Ridge ignored the command. His body pointed forward like a compass locked onto something unseen. "Something's wrong," Rowan whispered. He trusted Ridge more than he trusted most people. Ridge was never wrong about fear. A man carrying a coffee brushed past the group ahead. Ridge jerked, not away but forward, as if pulled by an invisible thread of instinct. His inhale was sharp, almost startled, like he'd caught a scent that didn't belong here. Rowan felt a cold current slide down his spine. Ridge behaved like this only when danger touched children, an echo from missions Rowan had tried to bury. The woman finally sensed their attention. She spun around, smile strained and trembling. "Officer, is there a problem?" Rowan kept his tone even. "Just a routine patrol, ma'am." The girl's fingers twitched again. Her lips parted in a tiny, trembling whisper Rowan barely saw. But Ridge responded instantly. The German Shepherd barked. A single explosive bark that cracked through the station like a warning shot. People flinched. A toddler cried. Commuters stepped back, forming an uneasy ring around Rowan and Ridge. The girl stared at Ridge, then at Rowan. Her mouth formed two silent words. "Help us." Every instinct Rowan possessed flared awake. He stepped forward, blocking the woman's exit. "Ma'am, I need you to open your bag." Her eyes widened, not with confusion, but with panic. "We're late. My children." She tried to pull Lily away. She tried to slip into the crowd. She didn't get 2 steps. Ridge lunged, not to bite, but to block, cutting off her path with flawless precision. His growl rolled like low thunder. The woman froze. Rowan moved quickly, taking position beside Ridge. "Place the bag down, now." Hands trembling, she lowered a red shoulder bag. Rowan opened it. Clothes, snacks, a folded blanket. But underneath, a taped-shut no-SIM phone. A bundle of IDs, all different names, all the same face. And a thin envelope of photographs. Children in playgrounds, doorsteps, parking lots. Shot from a distance. Grainy, wrong. Rowan's stomach tightened. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was organized. The girl whispered, so softly it almost didn't exist. "My name is Lily. She's not my mom." Ridge went to Lily instantly, standing in front of her, a shield of fur and muscle and instinct. The woman collapsed to her knees. "You don't understand. They made me do it. If I refused, they said they'd—" Ridge growled again, cutting her off. Rowan signaled for backup. Officers rushed in. Lily clung to Ridge's fur, burying her face against him. Ridge lowered his head to her shoulder, eyes warm, steady, protective. The sirens outside lit the walls red and blue. Rowan watched them, the small girl and the dog, who saved her before she dared to speak. Ridge hadn't just sensed fear. He had answered a silent call for help. And as Rowan looked around the station, he understood one thing with chilling certainty. This was only the beginning. The safe room inside Oak Ridge Central Station was a plain, windowless space built more for containment than comfort. With beige walls, a metal table, and the constant hum of the security vent. But for Lily, who sat curled on the chair with her knees tucked to her chest, it felt like an island in the middle of a storm she still couldn't fully comprehend. Rowan Maddox stood a short distance away. His tall, muscular frame angled slightly to give her space, while still keeping himself between her and the door. His charcoal gray security jacket hung open now, revealing the dark shirt beneath, and the old cracked military watch on his wrist caught the room's fluorescent light when he moved. His storm gray blue eyes, steady and calm even when he was running into danger, softened every time they rested on the little girl. Beside him, Ridge sat with the disciplined posture of a trained K9, but his body language carried something deeper than training. The 4-year-old German shepherd, with his sable black and gray fur and the bright, broken arrow patch on his chest, sat at the doorway with unwavering focus. His ears shifted at the smallest noise in the hallway, and his amber eyes remained locked on the exit like he was waiting for a voice no one else could hear. Lily rubbed her fingers together, hesitant, then whispered, "Other kids." Tried to signal too. Her voice trembled, but not from fear alone. There was guilt in it, the kind children carried when they blamed themselves for surviving. They tapped on walls, windows, anything they could, she continued. Sometimes 5 times, sometimes more, but nobody ever looked. Rowan knelt in front of her, his movements slow and careful, the way someone approaches a wounded animal. "I looked," he said gently, "because he looked first." He tilted his head toward Ridge. Lily followed Rowan's gaze. Ridge didn't turn to acknowledge her. He kept staring at the door, muscles taut as if he expected someone dangerous or someone vulnerable on the other side. "Does he always do that?" Lily whispered. "Only when he senses something," Rowan answered. "He's different, always has been." Lily swallowed and hugged her stuffed toy tighter, her knuckles white around the worn fabric. Across the room, the metal door opened with a sharp click. Special Agent Brooks stepped inside, a man in his early 40s, with a neatly trimmed beard outlining a square jaw and deep-set eyes that carried the fatigue of someone who had seen humanity at its worst more often than most. He wore a dark tactical vest labeled FBI and carried himself with the rigid efficiency of someone who survived by noticing everything. "She's talking," Rowan said quietly. Brooks nodded. "Good, because Dana isn't giving us much yet. She's playing half victim, half liar." At the sound of her name, Lily sank deeper into the chair. Brooks softened his tone, but only slightly. "We're working to figure out how big this network is." Ridge shifted suddenly, ears up, body alert. Brooks paused. "What's with your dog?" "He's been like that since we got here," Rowan replied. "He hasn't taken his eyes off that door." Brooks exhaled slowly. "Animals know things before we do." Rowan rose, adjusting his jacket. "Any updates from interrogation?" Brooks hesitated. "She said she wasn't working alone." Lily flinched. Rowan placed a reassuring hand on the back of her chair. "She said there are other routes they use." Brooks continued, lowering a manila folder onto the table. "She couldn't or wouldn't say how many kids are still out there." He opened the folder, revealing printed screenshots of routes across the state. Train stations, motels, cargo terminals, abandoned rest stops. Rowan's jaw tightened. Brooks frowned at his expression. "What?" Rowan pointed to a circled section on the map. "These aren't escape routes. These are holding points, drop locations." Brooks stared at him. "You sure?" Rowan nodded. "I've seen patterns like this before. Different battlefield, same thinking." Lily watched them silently, eyes wide. Rowan knelt again, bringing the map closer to her. "Lily, did you ever hear them talk about any of these places?" She hesitated, then reached out with a trembling finger and tapped one of the circled locations, a rest stop far from town. "They said some kids were already there." Rowan's breath sharpened. Brooks immediately picked up his radio. "I need a team ready to roll." Before Brooks could finish his call, Ridge suddenly lifted his head high, nostrils flaring as if he'd caught a scent that shouldn't exist in a sealed room. His body tensed so sharply, the metal tags on his harness clinked. Then he did something that stopped both men cold. He whined. Not a distressed whine, a calling whine, as if answering someone from far, far away. Lily's eyes widened. That's the sound he made when he found me. Rowan felt a chill crawl along his spine. Ridge turned his head slowly toward the map, as though pointing, and he stared at the same location Lily had tapped. Brooks lowered his radio. He knew. Rowan's voice was barely above a whisper. He knows someone else is out there. Lily tugged Rowan's sleeve. They said the older boy. He tried to run. They took him somewhere else. Not with us. Rowan steadied his breathing. He had seen children look like that before, in dusty villages overseas. Kids who survived by silence and signals because speaking out loud got them hurt. Do you remember anything else? Rowan asked. Lily shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Just that they said someone was coming to move us tonight. Brooks stepped back. So this wasn't the final stop. No, Rowan said. It was the transfer point, and we interrupted them. Ridge stood up fully now, tail stiff, chest puffed as if preparing for a mission. Rowan placed a hand on his back. Easy, boy. But Ridge didn't relax. His gaze was fixed, absolutely fixed, on the map. The same spot, the same circle Lily had pointed to. Brooks looked between Rowan and the dog. I'll have a field team head there now. Rowan shook his head. No. If that location is active, they'll hide. They know standard law enforcement tactics. Brooks studied him. You're suggesting we go? Rowan met his eyes, haunted, determined. I'm suggesting Ridge goes. We follow. Brooks sighed. You think he can find someone based on instinct? Rowan answered simply. He always has. Lily stood. She opened her arms toward Ridge. The German shepherd lowered his head so she could hug him, and she whispered into his fur, Please, help them too. Ridge blinked slowly, his amber eyes soft but unwavering. Rowan felt something tug in his chest, a sensation he couldn't explain. Almost like destiny shifting its weight. The door opened again. Officer Jane Holloway entered, a thin woman in her early 30s with soft blonde hair tied neatly and a beige cardigan over her uniform shirt. She had a gentle demeanor, the kind that made frightened people instinctively trust her. We're ready to transport Lily to the Child Protection Unit, she said kindly. She'll be safe there. Lily glanced between Jane, Ridge, and Rowan. Will you come back? Rowan nodded. We'll find the others. That's a promise. Ridge stepped forward, brushing his head against Lily's hand one last time. As Jane guided Lily out, Ridge's gaze followed her until the door shut. Then, almost immediately, he turned back to the map and let out one sharp, decisive bark. Brooks drew in a breath. That settles it. Rowan put on his jacket and tightened the straps on Ridge's harness. Let's go. And as they walked out of the safe room, Ridge leading with purposeful strides, Rowan knew one thing with absolute certainty. The mission wasn't over. Not even close. The abandoned industrial district on the outskirts of Oak Ridge had the kind of silence that seemed to swallow sound rather than reflect it. Old warehouses loomed like sleeping giants, their brick walls cracked from decades of cold winters and neglect. Rusted chain-link fences cast jagged shadows across the pavement. It was the kind of place criminals chose because no one came here without a reason. And those who did rarely stayed long. Rowan Maddox stepped out of the black SUV first, boots crunching on gravel. His tall, muscular frame moved with the measured readiness of someone who had learned to expect danger even in calm air. His charcoal gray security jacket shifted lightly in the wind. and his storm-gray blue eyes scanned the darkened architecture with the attention of a seasoned Marine. Ridge hopped out beside him, landing silently despite his size. The 4-year-old German Shepherd stood alert, sable black and gray coat bristling slightly beneath the black harness labeled Ridge K9 Unit. His broken arrow chest marking gleamed faintly in the pale light leaking from the cloudy evening sky. The dog inhaled deeply, ears rotating like calibrated sensors. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He simply pulled forward, not with the impatience of a dog eager to explore, but with the purpose of a soldier following an unseen command. "He's got something," Rowan said quietly. Special Agent Brooks, who had arrived in a separate vehicle, approached with 2 tactical officers. His dark tactical vest rustled as he walked, and the trimmed beard on his square jaw caught the low light. His voice was steady, low, tired. "Then we move with him. Your dog hasn't been wrong yet." Ridge continued forward, head low, nostrils flaring at intervals as if tasting the air. He stopped occasionally, once near a rusted dumpster, once near a broken window, and each time Rowan recognized the subtle checks Ridge performed in dangerous environments. Not scent alone, movement, air pressure, sound vibrations, instinct refined by training, but sharpened by something deeper. They reached the largest warehouse on the lot. The metal siding was dented and peeling, shattered glass crunched under Rowan's boots. Ridge halted at the door, frozen, ears tilted forward, tail stiff. "There," Rowan murmured. Brooks signaled silently to his team. One officer, a large man in his late 30s with close-cropped black hair and a heavy-set build, stepped forward. His name was Harper, and though new to Rowan, the man's calm efficiency suggested someone who'd seen plenty of bad nights. Harper tested the door, locked. Rowan rested a hand on Ridge's back. The dog's muscles were vibrating with tension. Something was inside. Harper wedged a crowbar into the frame and pried. The metal groaned angrily before snapping loose, and the door jerked open with a long screech. Dust-filled darkness waited beyond. Ridge didn't wait for a command. He slipped inside like a shadow. "Ridge. Slow," Rowan whispered, following immediately. His boots touched the cold concrete floor, and the air shifted, heavy, stale, carrying the unmistakable sharp trace of human presence without ventilation. Rowan first noticed the whispering sound. Not voices. Breaths. Small, uneven breaths. Ridge veered left, toward a stack of rotting wooden pallets, his body lowered into a cautious stance, but his tail gave a single, controlled wag, an unmistakable signal of living children nearby. Rowan's pulse tightened. Brooks' flashlight. The beam cut through the dark. Behind the pallets was a metal storage door with rust coating the edges like dried blood. Ridge scratched it once with his paw, then pressed his nose against the lower crack. A soft whine escaped him. Rowan exhaled. They're inside. Harper moved quickly, pulling at the lock. "It's stuck. Hold on." He pried harder. Another officer assisted. The door finally gave way, with a violent metallic scream that echoed across the warehouse. Behind it, huddled together in a corner, were 5 children. Their faces pale, clothes dirty, eyes wide from fear and exhaustion. The oldest boy, maybe 12, stepped in front of the others as if shielding them, even though his legs were trembling. He had sandy brown hair matted with dust, and eyes that tried to look brave but couldn't hide the terror underneath. Ridge walked toward them slowly, tail lowered in a gesture of calm. The German Shepherd stopped just a few feet away and carefully bowed his head. The oldest boy sagged with relief. "A dog," he whispered. "You came." "Yeah, buddy." Rowan said, lowering himself to one knee. He always does. Brooks and Harper moved behind him to assess the children, checking vitals and keeping voices soft. The youngest girl, no older than 5, reached out a trembling hand toward Ridge. The dog stepped close enough for her to touch his fur, and the moment her fingers brushed his coat, she let out a tiny sob that cracked the stale air like glass. Rowan swallowed the pressure rising in his chest. He had seen children rescued before, but he had also seen children found too late. These were alive. These were safe. Ridge had known. Brooks approached Rowan, voice muted. All 5 matched the missing persons list. You and Ridge just saved more kids in one night than most officers do in a year. Rowan shook his head. Ridge saved them. I'm just the guy holding the leash. Brooks chuckled under his breath. You don't believe that for a second. Rowan didn't answer. He couldn't shake the feeling he had back in the safe room. The sense that Ridge wasn't reacting to smell or sound alone. Something else pulled him here. As the officers prepared to escort the children out, Ridge suddenly went still. More still than before. His head lifted slowly, eyes fixed on nothing visible, yet intensely focused. A low, quiet rumble began in his chest. Rowan's hand hovered over Ridge's harness. What is it? Ridge turned, not toward the children, not toward the officers, but toward the far, dark corner of the warehouse. Rowan felt a cold sensation crawl up his spine. Ridge was not sensing a threat. No, he was sensing absence. Something or someone meant to be here. Someone missing. But before Rowan could follow Ridge's gaze, Harper called out, We need to move. ETA on backup is 3 minutes. Brooks nodded. Let's get these kids out before anything else shifts tonight. Rowan guided the children toward the door, while Ridge walked beside the youngest girl like a protective shadow. When they reached the outside air, the children blinked hard, almost overwhelmed by the brightness of the emergency lights. A medic team rushed forward, wrapping blankets around thin shoulders and guiding them gently toward waiting vehicles. One by one, the children turned to Ridge. The oldest boy lifted a hand in a shaky half-wave. Thank you, he whispered. Ridge responded with a slow, deliberate blink. Rowan placed a hand on Ridge's back. Good work, partner. But the dog didn't relax. His ears were forward, nose lifting into the breeze like he was searching for something else, something beyond the 5 rescued children. Brooks joined Rowan beside the SUV. We hit one location. God knows how many more there are. Rowan looked down at Ridge, who was still staring toward the warehouse, broken arrow chest marking rising and falling with slow breaths. He's not done, Rowan said quietly. Not even close. Ridge took one step forward, then another, as if the night itself was calling him onward. And Rowan knew the mission had only just begun. The convoy rolled out of the abandoned warehouse district under a bruised sky. Sirens muted to avoid drawing attention. The air smelled of metal and cold rain, and the reflection of blue lights shimmered across wet pavement like fragments of broken glass. Rowan Maddox rode in the lead SUV, Ridge standing with front paws braced against the back seat as he watched the night rush past. The German Shepherd's sable black and gray coat seemed darker under the dim cabin light, the bright broken arrow fur on his chest rising with each steady breath. His ears remained beautifully sculpted by tension, upright, ready, listening to something Rowan couldn't hear. Rowan, still in his charcoal gray security jacket and coyote brown cargo pants, glanced at Ridge through the rearview mirror. You're not done tonight, are you? He muttered softly. Ridge didn't blink. He simply stared forward, unshakable. Special Agent Brooks drove beside him, jaw tightened, eyes narrowing under the glow of the dashboard. His neatly trimmed beard looked even sharper in the moving shadows. "We need to get these kids processed and secured. After that, we track the next route." Brooks spoke in his usual low, clipped tone, but fatigue seeped behind every word. A fatigue earned from years of chasing criminals who hid behind innocent faces. But Rowan's instincts were louder than Brooks's logic, and Ridge's were louder than both. It happened suddenly. Rowan caught a flicker of motion in the corner of his eye, headlights igniting in the dark like a beast waking. A black SUV halfway down the service alley roared alive, its engine snarling. "Brooks," Rowan warned. Brooks jerked the wheel left. "I see it." The SUV sped straight toward the convoy. Ridge exploded into a bark, sharp, urgent, the kind that came from bone-deep instinct. Rowan's body reacted before his mind could catch up. "Ridge," he commanded as he flung the door open. The German Shepherd leapt out with the grace of a trained warrior, landing on wet pavement without slipping. Rowan was right behind him, boots pounding the ground. The enemy SUV screeched and swerved around the corner, tires throwing dirty water into the air. Rowan sprinted after Ridge, breath hard but controlled, muscles remembering years of battlefield pursuit. Ridge became a streak of motion in front of him, ears pinned back, tail straight, paws hitting the ground in a rhythmic drumbeat of primal purpose. "Unit 3, Rowan shouted into his radio. "Suspect vehicle heading east from the warehouse. Ridge and I are in pursuit." Static crackled, followed by Harper's voice. Deep, steady, authoritative. "Copy. We're moving to intercept." The alley twisted sharply. Rowan cut around the corner just in time to see the SUV fishtail, clipping a trash bin that spun across the pavement. Ridge didn't falter. He bounded over debris with a precision that came from instinct, not training. Rain began to fall, thin, cold needles slicing the dark. "I've got eyes," Brooks radioed. "They're trying to break line of sight." Rowan pushed harder. His boots splashed through puddles, breath hissing as he chased the small golden shape of Ridge's harness bobbing ahead. The dog was closing distance, fast. The SUV's taillights flickered through fog. Ridge launched himself forward, catching the edge of speed Rowan knew came only from adrenaline and some deeper purpose he couldn't explain. The driver, a man in his early 40s with unkempt black hair and a wild beard, glanced out the window. His grayish skin tone, sunken cheeks, and trembling jaw suggested addiction or long-term stress. Rage flashed across his eyes when he saw Ridge gaining. He slammed the accelerator, but he couldn't outrun instincts shaped by survival. Ridge lunged. His jaws clamped onto the driver's sleeve through the open window, powerful teeth anchoring him like a living grappling hook. The man shouted, yanking the wheel wildly. The SUV spun sideways. Rowan shouted, "Ridge, let go!" But the German Shepherd released at the perfect moment, pushing off the vehicle before it collided with a chain-link fence in a violent crash of metal and sparks. Rowan reached the scene seconds later, drawing in deep breaths as he approached the wreck. Smoke hissed from the crumpled hood. The driver stumbled out, clutching his arm where Ridge had bitten through fabric. His face contorted with defiance, anger, and something darker, fear. "Police!" Rowan barked. "Don't move!" The man took one step as if to run. Ridge blocked him instantly, body low, growl vibrating through the soaked pavement. The suspect froze, chest heaving. The rain plastered his hair to his skull, revealing scars across his temple and a deep cut splitting his eyebrow. His eyes flicked to Ridge with a mix of dread and surrender. Harper and 2 backup officers arrived, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," Harper ordered. The man finally lifted his arms. Rowan cuffed him, breath still heavy from the chase. But as he secured the man, Ridge suddenly stiffened. His ears tilted, not toward the suspect, not toward Rowan, but toward the distant, open space behind the warehouse. Rowan noticed instantly. "What is it, boy?" Ridge didn't move, only stared. At nothing, or at something Rowan couldn't see. A low breeze swept through the alley, carrying a faint metallic scent that didn't belong to wreckage or rain. Ridge inhaled deeply, chest rising. Then, in a movement so subtle Rowan almost missed it, Ridge took one step backward, as if sensing a presence, as if someone unseen was calling him again. Rowan felt the hair on his arms rise. Ridge slowly looked up at Rowan with eyes that seemed older than 4 years, eyes that held knowledge beyond scent or sound. Then he turned back toward the dark horizon, staring with wordless certainty. Brooks approached, breathing heavy from running. "Driver's in custody. We'll take him in for questioning." Rowan didn't answer immediately. Ridge was still staring into the dark. "Rowan?" Brooks pressed. Rowan finally looked away from Ridge. This wasn't just a getaway driver. He knew where the kids were being moved next. That's why he ran. Brooks nodded grimly. "We'll make him talk." As the officers loaded the suspect into a vehicle, Ridge circled back to Rowan's side. The German shepherd bumped Rowan's leg with his nose, a silent signal of readiness. Rowan wiped rain from his forehead. "You hear something I don't, partner?" Ridge held his gaze, then looked toward the distant warehouses again. Rowan felt the quiet message. The mission wasn't over, not even close, and the night had more to reveal. The storm arrived faster than predicted, sweeping over Oak Ridge with a cold, relentless fury. Rain hammered the streets in sheets, as if the sky itself had decided to wash the world clean. In the operations hub inside the police substation, harsh fluorescent lights cut through the dim interior, casting a sterile glow over stacks of reports, digital screens, and the exhaustion etched on every officer's face. It wasn't chaos. It was the focused intensity of people who knew the stakes, and knew they were running out of time. Rowan Maddox stood at the main table, droplets still clinging to his charcoal gray security jacket. His hair, dark brown cropped in a high and tight, was damp, and a line of rainwater still traced down the side of his sun-tanned neck. His storm gray blue eyes moved across a spread of evidence bags, focusing on one in particular. A folded, water-stained map retrieved from the pocket of the SUV driver Ridge had taken down. Ridge lay beside him, but not in a resting posture. Even settled on the floor, the 4-year-old German shepherd remained alert, ears rotating, breathing slow but deliberate. The broken arrow marking on his chest rose and fell like a pulse of light each time lightning flickered outside. Across the room, Special Agent Brooks leaned against a metal cabinet, rubbing tired eyes with one hand. The man looked like he'd been awake for 48 hours straight, his neatly trimmed beard bristling with tension. "We just finished running the driver's prints," he announced. "Name's Garrett Crane, 42. Prior arrests for trafficking minors, smuggling IDs, and 2 counts of evading federal warrants." Rowan exhaled through clenched teeth. "So he's deeply embedded." "More than that," Brooks said, pulling up a file on the tablet. "He's one of the transport coordinators, meaning someone above him gives orders, and someone under him moves kids night to night." Ridge lifted his head at the word kids, amber eyes locking onto Rowan's. "Yeah, buddy," Rowan murmured, kneeling to scratch behind the dog's ear. "We're not done." Ridge leaned subtly against Rowan's knee, a quiet, instinctive reassurance. Brooks tapped the map. This wasn't found by accident. He kept it in an inner pocket, close to skin, like he didn't want to risk losing it. Rowan unfolded the map carefully. Its edges were torn, its corners dotted with circled markers similar to Dana's earlier map. But there were more of them. Twice as many. Brooks let out a low whistle. This is a second route chart. Rowan studied it. No, this is the primary. Dana was low level. Crane had the real logistics. Before Brooks could respond, the operations room door swung open. A woman in her late 30s stepped inside, tall, thin, and pale from the cold, with wet black hair pulled hastily into a ponytail. She wore gray scrubs beneath a blue paramedic jacket, patches still wet from the storm. Her expression was serious, but her dark brown eyes held a gentleness that suggested someone who spent her days trying to ease pain rather than cause it. This was paramedic Laura Hensley, the medic who had evaluated Lily and the rescued children. She paused when she saw Rowan and Ridge. "Sorry to interrupt," she said quietly, voice soft but firm. "I have updates on the kids." Rowan straightened immediately. "Are they okay?" "They're stable," she reassured him. "Exhausted, dehydrated, and frightened. But safe." She hesitated. "But the oldest boy keeps asking about someone." "Who?" Brooks asked. Laura glanced subtly at Ridge. "He said there was another kid, a boy who tried to escape 2 nights ago. They beat him and took him away. He hasn't been seen since." Rowan's spine stiffened. Ridge reacted too, ears pricking sharply, breath pulling in faster. Laura added, "The boys said they called him the runner, because he always tried to signal outsiders." Brooks rubbed his forehead. Damn. If they moved him, he could be anywhere by now. "No," Rowan said quietly. "They wouldn't move him far. Runners are threats, they keep them close." Laura nodded once, her expression tightening with worry. She glanced at Ridge again. He was asking if the dog could find him. At that, Ridge stood, not abruptly, but with slow, controlled intention, like a soldier rising to accept an order that had been waiting in his chest. Rowan placed a hand on Ridge's back. "We'll try." Laura offered a small, grateful smile before stepping out, leaving the map and lingering urgency behind. Rowan bent over the map again. The circled points weren't random. They created a jagged line across the region like stepping stones of darkness. Brooks leaned beside him. "Which one is our next target?" Rowan traced 2 circles with his finger. "These 2. They're close to each other. Too close. One is the decoy. One is the holding site." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know which is which?" Ridge answered first. The German shepherd stepped forward, sniffed the map slowly, then planted a paw, firmly, on the northern circle. Rowan's jaw tightened. "That one." Brooks didn't argue. "Gear up. We leave in 5. But before Rowan could fold the map, Ridge's posture changed. His ears flicked, his head lowered, and a soft growl rumbled deep in his chest. Not a warning growl, a recognition growl, as if he sensed something on the map itself. His nose moved inch by inch until he reached a faint smudge near the circle he had chosen. A smear of something brownish red, barely visible. Rowan leaned down, heart tightening. "That's blood," he whispered. Brooks exhaled sharply. "From who?" Ridge answered by pressing his nose gently against the stain, and then lifting his head toward the door, eyes illuminated with a certainty that made the room fall silent, as if the boy they were searching for had left that mark to be found. Brooks grabbed his tactical vest. "That's it. We move now." Rowan stood, feeling the familiar weight of purpose settle into his bones. Ridge was already at the door, tail stiff, body braced forward as if the storm outside didn't exist. "Ridge," Rowan said softly. "Show me." The dog didn't bark. He simply turned and walked, deliberate and sure, the broken arrow marking on his chest, catching the light like a guiding flame. Brooks stopped beside Rowan. "You really think he can track a kid through this storm?" Rowan met his eyes. "I don't think." He looked at Ridge, the dog who heard silent cries, who found places humans didn't know existed, who felt absence like a wound. "I know." Ridge pushed the door open with his nose. The storm swallowed them whole, and the hunt for the missing boy began. The storm had grown violent, turning the forest road into a narrow tunnel of swaying trees and blinding rain. Wind slammed against the SUV like angry fists, and lightning split the sky with jagged white scars. Rowan Maddox gripped the wheel with steady hands, muscles taut beneath his charcoal gray security jacket. His storm gray blue eyes cut through the darkness ahead with unshaken focus. Ridge stood in the back seat, paws planted wide for balance, his sable black and gray coat slick with the humidity inside the vehicle. The broken arrow patch on his chest glowed faintly when lightning flashed, giving him an almost mythic presence. Half guardian, half omen. Special Agent Brooks rode shotgun. Radio pressed to his ear. The lines on his face looked deeper in the strobe of lightning, fatigue and determination locked in equal measure. "Units 3 and 5 are moving to the northern roadblock," he said. "Harper's team is checking abandoned cabins on the West Ridge." Rowan kept driving. "Ridge says north." Brooks glanced back. Ridge wasn't just alert, he was locked onto something. His ears aimed forward. His breath came slow and focused. His amber eyes didn't blink. "He's tracking something," Brooks muttered. "But through a storm like this? How?" "He listens differently," Rowan said. "Not just with ears. Something else guides him." The SUV lurched over a pothole, and Ridge braced himself without breaking his concentration. They reached a narrowing dirt road that snaked into dense woodland. Rowan slowed and lowered the window. Rain lashed into the vehicle instantly, stinging their skin. Ridge thrust his head forward, inhaling deeply. Then he barked. Once. Sharp. Purposeful. Rowan stopped the SUV. Ridge leapt out before the engine fully quieted, landing on muddy ground with a splash. Rowan followed immediately, boots sinking into sodden earth. Brooks came next, pulling up his hood with a grimace. The forest was a living storm, trees bending, branches snapping, shadows twisting in every direction. Ridge didn't hesitate. He moved with the precision of something following a trail no human eyes could see. Rowan stayed close. Brooks covered the rear. They climbed a slope of slippery stones and thick roots. Ridge paused occasionally, sniffing the air as though tracking emotions rather than scent. Rowan's breath steamed in the cold air as they pushed deeper. After 10 minutes, Ridge stopped. Rowan froze beside him. "Got something?" Ridge lowered his head, ears pressed back, not in fear but in sadness. A discarded shoe lay in the mud. A child's shoe, small, blue, bruised by rain. Brooks knelt to inspect it. Recent, maybe hours. Rowan swallowed hard. "He's close." Ridge nudged the shoe gently with his nose, then looked up at Rowan with an expression that struck harder than any words. Determination. And fear for someone still out there. Thunder rolled overhead, and for a moment, the world fell, silent except for the rain. Ridge suddenly stiffened, his head lifted sharply. His ears pointed toward the north with almost supernatural precision. Then Rowan heard it. A sound so thin, so fragile, he thought at first it was just wind. A cry, not loud, not clear, but unmistakably human. Ridge answered with a soft, aching whine. as if reassuring the unseen voice. "You're not alone. I hear you." Rowan's pulse surged. He's alive. Brooks scanned the darkness. Direction? Ridge solved that. He bolted north, paws launching him through the underbrush. Rowan sprinted after him. Branches clawed at his arms and jacket. Mud swallowed his boots. Rain blurred his vision, but he didn't slow. Ridge was ahead, a streak of motion illuminated by intermittent lightning. They crashed through a thicket and emerged into a clearing where an old ranger station stood. Half collapsed, long abandoned. Its wooden walls sagged inward, roof punctured by fallen limbs, windows shattered. A perfect place to hide someone no one wanted found. Ridge circled the structure, barking sharply at one corner where planks of rotten wood jutted outward. Rowan rushed forward, crouched low, and pushed aside debris. A narrow crawl space, barely big enough for a child. He aimed his flashlight inside. A small figure curled at the back of the space, body trembling, clothes torn. A boy around 9 or 10, with dirt-streaked blonde hair plastered to his forehead, scraped cheeks, and a swollen lip. His eyes, pale green, glowed with fear and defiance, even now. "The runner," Rowan spoke softly. "Hey, kid. We're here." The boy didn't move. He didn't blink. He only stared at Ridge, who crawled partially in, lowering his head and letting out a soft, broken whine that vibrated through the wooden beams. The boy's lips parted. "Dog? From the warehouse?" "Yeah," Rowan whispered. "He found you." Brooks moved behind Rowan. "We need to check for injuries." The boy whispered. "I heard him earlier, through the storm." Rowan paused. "He wasn't here yet." "I still heard him," the boy insisted, voice shaking. "He told me to hold on." Ridge leaned in and licked the boy's hand. The boy finally sobbed, the first sound of release after days of terror. Rowan reached in, lifting the boy carefully into his arms. The child was light, far too light, bones palpable beneath soaked clothes. "Got you," Rowan murmured. "You're safe." But when Rowan turned toward Brooks, Ridge growled, not at the boy, not at Rowan, but at the darkness behind the station. Brooks stiffened. "What now?" Ridge bristled, tail straight, body rigid. Rowan adjusted his hold on the boy. "Something's coming." The storm picked up again, winds howling through trees like a warning. Brooks drew his weapon. "Units 3 and 5, this is Brooks. We've got the missing kid. Request immediate extraction." Static. No response. Rowan cursed under his breath. Storms blocking signals. Ridge barked, one sharp, urgent command. Rowan nodded. "Move. Back to the SUV." They pushed through the forest, Rowan shielding the boy with his own body. Brooks covered the rear. The trek back felt twice as long, the storm angrier, the path darker. Finally, headlights glowed faintly through the trees. The SUV. Safety. Brooks exhaled in relief. Almost there. A branch snapped behind them. Rowan turned sharply. Ridge growled with lethal intensity. A shadow moved in the tree line. A man's silhouette. Tall. Lean. Watching them. Then, gone. Vanished into the storm. Brooks whispered. "That wasn't Crane." "No," Rowan said. "That was someone else. Someone higher." Ridge snarled toward the direction the figure had disappeared, the broken arrow marking on his chest, rising and falling like a battle drum. Rowan placed the boy inside the SUV, wrapping him in a blanket from the emergency kit. The boy clung weakly to his sleeve. "Don't let them take me again." "They won't," Rowan promised. Thunder shook the sky. Ridge leapt into the back seat, positioning himself protectively beside the boy. Rowan shut the door gently. Brooks climbed into the passenger seat. Rowan started the engine. "Let's get him out of here," he said. The SUV tore through the storm, and behind them, hidden by trees and darkness, someone watched their taillights fade. Someone who wasn't done yet. The storm had thinned by the time Rowan Maddox reached the outskirts of Oak Ridge's safe perimeter, though the sky still churned with bruised clouds. The road shimmered with rainwater, reflecting the red and blue flashes from scattered patrol cars. Rowan parked the SUV beside the command post trailer, its metal walls rattling in the wind. Inside the vehicle, the rescued boy, the runner, slept under a thick blanket, exhaustion finally overpowering fear. Ridge remained awake beside him, lying in a protective curl. His sable black and gray coat still glistened from the storm. The broken arrow marking on his chest rose and fell with every slow, vigilant breath. Even resting, he looked like a guardian carved from instinct itself. Rowan stepped out and was greeted by Lieutenant Jane Holloway, a slender woman in her early 30s, with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun and a beige cardigan soaked slightly at the sleeves. She held a clipboard close to her chest, her posture tense but professional. "Maddox," she said, breath visible in the cold air. "Is that him, the missing boy?" "Yes," Rowan replied. "He was hiding in a ranger station off the old logging trail." Jane's features softened, worry briefly breaking through her usually composed expression. "We've been searching for him for 3 days. Ridge found him," Rowan said simply. Jane glanced at Ridge through the SUV window. "That dog, I've never seen anything like him." "You're not the only one," Rowan murmured. Special Agent Brooks emerged from the trailer, phone pressed to his ear. His beard was speckled with raindrops, his tactical vest muddy from the chase. "Copy that," he said, voice clipped. "Send the update to command." He hung up and turned toward Rowan. "Crane's still out there, but he's scared. He knows we've recovered 6 kids. He won't stay hidden long." Rowan nodded. "He's running out of places to hide." "And people to hide behind," Brooks added. A medic arrived to escort the boy to the evaluation tent. A middle-aged man named Dr. Hayes, with salt-sprinkled hair and tired brown eyes that held the kind of compassion only years of treating the wounded could build. He lifted the boy gently and carried him toward the illuminated tent, where blankets and soft voices waited. Ridge finally stepped out of the SUV, shaking water from his coat in a burst of droplets. He trotted beside Rowan, but something in his posture was different. No longer urgent, but not relaxed either. A watchfulness still rippled through him. Brooks noticed. "He's still tracking something." "He never lets go of a trail," Rowan replied. The wind shifted. Ridge froze. He lifted his head. His ears pointed north. Rowan sensed it instantly. That shift in the dog's breathing, the electric stillness in his body. Ridge stepped forward, nose working the air as if decoding a silent language woven into the night. "He's got something," Rowan said quietly. Brooks frowned. "But we already found the boy. What else?" Ridge growled, low, focused, not at the forest, not at the road. At the far end of the command post, where rows of officers moved. One figure slipped behind them, a tall man, lean, hood pulled over his head, moving with intentional subtlety. "Crane!" Rowan's pulse spiked. "Brooks, behind the trucks!" They sprinted. Crane bolted. Chaos exploded across the command post. Officers shouted, radios blared, boots hammered the pavement. Crane dashed between vehicles, knocking over supply crates. His coat whipped behind him, revealing a gaunt face with sharp cheekbones, stubble-shadowed jaw, and eyes wild with fear and adrenaline. Rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead as he ran. Rowan lunged forward, but Ridge was faster. The German shepherd launched like a streak of living thunder, paws pounding in perfect rhythm. Crane looked back, panicked, and ducked between 2 trucks. Ridge followed. Brooks shouted, "Cut him off left." Crane emerged on the other side, slipping in mud, scrambling toward the tree line. Rowan chased him down the slope. But Ridge overshot him, cutting in front of Crane with predatory precision. "Stop!" Rowan yelled. "Hands where I can see." Crane skidded, lost balance, and fell hard into the mud. He scrambled up, breath ragged. "You don't know what you're doing," he shouted, eyes darting between Rowan and Ridge. "This goes beyond me." "You're done," Rowan growled. "It ends now." Crane's voice cracked into desperation. "They'll come for you, for all of us. You don't understand. This network is bigger than—" Ridge growled, stepping closer. Crane flinched. "Call him off," Crane shouted. "Call him—" Rowan shook his head. "He's reading you, and he knows you're lying." Crane broke. He tried to run, but Ridge tackled him with a controlled strike to the shoulder, pinning him face down. Rowan moved in, cuffing him swiftly while Crane sputtered curses into the mud. Brooks finally reached them, breath visible in sharp bursts. "We got him. Maddox, good work." Rowan looked at Ridge. He did the work. Ridge stepped back, chest rising with the steady triumph of a soldier completing the mission meant for him since the moment he was born. As Crane was lifted to his feet and dragged toward the command post, Ridge suddenly stopped, not watching Crane, not watching the officers. He turned toward the trailer where the rescued children were resting. Rowan frowned. "Ridge?" The dog took a single step forward, his amber eyes quietly shining with something deep, almost spiritual. The youngest rescued child, Lily, peeked through the tent flap. The moment she saw Ridge, she pressed her small hand to her heart. Ridge slowly lowered his head, as if receiving a message only innocence could send. It wasn't fear, it wasn't warning, it was gratitude. And something Rowan couldn't name. A promise fulfilled, a bond sealed, destiny closing a circle only Ridge seemed to understand. The storm finally eased into a quiet drizzle. Crane was loaded into a transport van. Agents secured the perimeter. Dr. Hayes escorted the children toward a second trailer, preparing them for reunification with their families. Parents began to arrive one by one. A mother collapsed into sobs as her son ran into her arms. A father hugged his daughter so tightly he could barely breathe. Relief and heartbreak mixed into a single, overwhelming sound that drifted through the clearing. Rowan stepped back to give families room. Ridge sat beside him, tail brushing lightly against his boot. Then Lily broke away from her parents and ran toward Ridge. She hugged the German shepherd fiercely, burying her face in his wet fur. "You heard me," she whispered, even when no one else did. Ridge's amber eyes softened. He leaned into her gently, giving her a slow, solemn blink. Rowan swallowed the tightness in his throat. Brooks approached quietly. "We close the chapter tonight. You and Ridge did something rare." Rowan kept his gaze on Lily and Ridge. "He listens differently," he said. "He always has." Brooks nodded. "Whatever that is, it saved lives." As dawn broke, pale gold light cut through the last shreds of storm cloud. Ridge lifted his head, watching the sunrise with a calm that felt ancient. Rowan placed a hand on his harness. "You did it," he whispered, not just saving them, but hearing them. Ridge pressed his head against Rowan's leg, the broken arrow marking glowing faintly in the morning light like a symbol of fate fulfilled. The night was over. The children were safe. The shadows had been chased away. And the world, for a brief moment, felt right again. Because one dog listened when no one else could. Sometimes the greatest miracles do not arrive with thunder or splendor, but through small, quiet moments of courage that remind us God is still working in the hidden corners of our world. A frightened whisper answered. A child found in the darkness. A loyal dog who listens when no one else can. These are the signs that grace still walks beside us, guiding ordinary people to extraordinary acts. As you return to your own life tonight, remember that God often uses the simplest things to reveal His presence. A stranger's kindness, a sudden intuition, a voice in your heart urging you to pay attention. Perhaps the same gentle hand that guided Ridge to those children is guiding you too, toward someone who needs you more than you know. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who could use a reminder that hope still wins. Leave a comment, let your voice be part of this community, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue telling stories that lift the spirit and honor the quiet heroes among us. May God bless you and keep you safe wherever you are tonight. May He watch over your family, your home, and every step you take, just as He watched over the children in this story. And may you always recognize the miracles He places in your path.